notice how, like, just taking a deep breath can sometimes make a huge difference when you're, really feeling overwhelmed? Mm-hmm. It's like this hidden superpower, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And we all have it.
We do.
And it turns out there's some pretty amazing science behind it. You sent over some research on heart rate variability, HRV,
mm-hmm.
specifically its potential in education. And I got to say, this stuff is fascinating. We're diving deep into how this, simple but powerful phenomenon could be a game changer, not just for students, but for anyone who's ever set foot in a classroom, especially teachers. Am I right?
Yeah.
Because let's face it, classrooms can be, let's just call it a symphony of energy, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And managing that energy, right? Finding that balance, between focused attention and, let's just say, creative expression. It's a daily challenge for teachers.
Okay, so before we really get into the nitty-gritty of the research you sent, let's make sure we're all on the same page here.
Sure.
What exactly is heart rate variability, HRV?
Okay.
And what does it even have to do with education?
That's a great question. It's not just about slowing down your heart rate.
Right.
You might initially think HRV is actually about the variation in the time between your heartbeats.
Okay, so like a heart rhythm that's got a bit of a swing to it.
Yeah.
Not just a metronome,
Exactly.
ticking away at the same pace all the time.
Yeah. And that variation, that dynamic ebb and flow, that's actually a sign of a healthy nervous system, like a really responsive one.
Okay.
When you're stressed, your heart rate tends to be more consistent, almost like a drummer who's stuck on like repeat.
Yeah.
But when you're relaxed, your breath slows, gets deeper, and that's when you see more of that healthy variability in your heart rhythm.
So it's like your heart is actually reflecting your internal state.
Right.
Kind of like a mirror.
It is.
To your nervous system.
It is.
That's wild.
And what's even more fascinating is that it works both ways.
Huh.
So just like stress can affect your HRV, research shows that intentionally influencing your HRV,
okay,
through techniques like breathing, like controlled breathing, can actually shift your internal state.
Interesting.
To a calmer, more focused place.
Now that's what I call a two-way street.
Yeah.
And this is where things start to get really interesting, especially for you.
Okay.
Because the research you sent points to something called the 365 method.
Right.
As a way to tap into this whole HRV magic. I'm sure you've heard of this one.
Yeah.
3 times a day, you take 5 minutes to just focus on your breath, aiming for about 6 breaths per minute.
Right.
Sounds pretty simple, right?
Yeah. I mean, it might sound almost too simple. Right. Yeah. But remember what we were saying about like how connected our breath and our nervous system are?
Yeah.
This method, it's like a shortcut.
Okay.
A way to like directly influence that system and kind of nudge it towards, a calmer state, more balanced.
So it's less about like the actual numbers, right?
Yeah.
And more about what those numbers are doing to your body.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And the research, it really backs this up.
Does it?
Especially some compelling studies, actually, that were done in classrooms. Real classrooms.
Not just in a lab somewhere.
Not just a lab. No, these were like real world settings.
Interesting. You mean that research from Réunion Island?
Yeah.
You sent that over.
That's the one.
That's the one that really caught my eye. They actually put like the 365 method to the test.
They did.
With teachers.
Yeah.
And students.
With teachers and students, yeah. They wanted to see how it played out.
Okay, I have to know. What did they find?
Well, they used a few different methods to track the impact, to really see what was going on. They looked at things like, stress levels, both teachers and students through like questionnaires. And they also observed behavior in the classroom.
Oh, interesting.
To see if there were like any changes.
So they weren't just relying on people to like self-report.
Right.
Saying, oh yeah, I feel calmer now.
Exactly. They wanted like tangible evidence.
Got it. And what they find? Was it as transformative as everyone's saying? Was there evidence?
The evidence was, it was pretty compelling, actually.
Okay.
For teachers who were consistently using the method, the 365.
Yeah.
They saw like a significant decrease.
Really?
In their stress levels.
Wow.
But here's where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
They observed a ripple effect.
A ripple effect?
In the classroom itself.
Okay, hold on. Let's unpack that for a second. What do you mean ripple effect?
So basically, calmer teachers seem to lead to calmer classrooms.
Really? Because that's kind of a big deal, right?
It is a big deal, yeah. Teachers, they noted like improvements in students' focus, a decrease in, disruptive behavior, even like a greater sense of, connection in the classroom.
Interesting.
And it makes sense if you think about it.
Yeah.
When a teacher, is feeling stressed out, overwhelmed, it unconsciously, it impacts the energy.
The energy of the room,
of the whole room, But when that teacher can like cultivate a sense of calm, through something as simple as their breath, it creates a more positive environment, for everyone.
That's amazing. And to be clear, we're not just talking about like anecdotal evidence here.
Right.
They had actual data.
They did.
To back this up.
Beyond the questionnaires, beyond the behavioral observations, they use these sociometric tests.
What now?
Sociometric tests.
Okay, you're gonna have to break that one down for me.
Okay, so essentially they're like mapping out the social landscape of a classroom.
Interesting.
So they help researchers, see like who students gravitate towards, who they might avoid, and how those relationships, change over time.
So like a friendship flow chart.
Yeah, like a friendship flow chart.
But backed by science.
Exactly. Backed by science.
I like it.
And what they found in this study is that after the teachers started implementing the HRV techniques, there was a noticeable increase in like positive social connections.
Really?
And a decrease in social rejection among the students.
Wow. That's huge.
Yeah.
And that's just from like incorporating a few minutes of breathing throughout the day.
It's incredible.
That's wild.
It really speaks to the power of this this mind-body connection, right?
Yeah.
We've been talking about it.
Absolutely.
And it also highlights something I think really crucial.
Okay.
It's not just about the individual benefits of HRV. It's about like creating a more harmonious learning environment.
Yeah, for everyone involved.
For everyone involved, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, now I'm really starting to see the potential here.
Right.
But before we get too carried away, I have to ask, were there any downsides they found in the research?
That's a fair question.
Because, there's always a catch, right?
Right. But honestly, one of the most remarkable things about these findings is like the lack of downsides.
Really?
They didn't really find any. And I think that speaks to like how gentle and accessible these techniques are. We're not talking about, major life overhauls here.
Right.
We're talking about incorporating a few minutes of breathing into your day. It's about like empowering people.
Okay.
Teachers, students with tools to, to manage their internal states and navigate, the ups and downs of the classroom.
Of life.
Exactly.
Does that make sense? It's not about like eliminating stress.
Right.
Because let's face it, that's impossible.
Impossible.
It's about building that resilience.
Yes.
That capacity to bounce back and stay present.
Yeah.
Even when things are a little chaotic.
Exactly. And that's where this research gets really exciting.
We're not just talking about putting a Band-Aid on the problem.
Right.
We're talking about, actually giving teachers and students tools to build their own capacity for handling whatever comes their way, which I think is really cool.
It is cool. And, it's like this research really opens up a whole new perspective on education itself, doesn't it?
Does it? How so?
Well, we tend to think of learning as this purely mental thing,
Right.
Like it's all happening in our heads.
Yeah.
But the reality is our bodies and minds, they're like constantly talking to each other.
Okay.
Influencing each other in ways that honestly, we probably don't even realize.
It's like that saying, the body keeps the score.
Exactly.
Like if we're not addressing the physiological stuff, the body stuff, especially in high pressure situations, like a classroom, I mean, we're missing a big piece of the puzzle.
For sure. And this research really suggests that by incorporating something as simple as breathing, like conscious breathing, we might be able to create a more supportive and effective learning environment for everyone, not just, academically, but emotionally and socially too.
That's pretty amazing. So it's like we've been so focused on teaching kids what to think,
right,
that we've forgotten to teach them how to think.
Yes, exactly.
How to manage their own internal world so they can, show up as their best selves.
Be present.
Ready to learn,
Absolutely.
Ready to connect. That kind of thing.
It's like a total paradigm shift, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is.
And I think it has the potential to be so transformative for individual students, but also for the whole education system.
Yeah. You know, it's pretty incredible to think that like something as simple as taking a few deep breaths throughout the day could have like such a profound impact. It reminds me a little bit of that quote by Viktor Frankl. You know, between stimulus and response, there's a space. In that space is our power to choose our response.
I love it.
Well, it feels like these HRV techniques, this focus on breathing, it's like we're expanding that space.
Yeah.
We're giving ourselves more room to choose a different response, you know, even when things are kind of chaotic around us.
A calmer response, a more intentional response. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
And it speaks to, you know, like you were saying, the empowering nature of this whole thing.
Totally, yeah.
It's not about controlling everything around us.
Right, because we can't do that.
Because we can't. It's impossible.
Right.
It's about cultivating that inner space.
Yeah.
That resilience.
Yeah.
That allows us to deal with, to navigate whatever comes up, you know?
Yeah.
With more awareness. With more intention.
You know what I love about this? It's never too late to start.
That's the best part.
You know, it doesn't matter if you're like, you know, a brand new teacher or you've been doing it for, 20 years. Or if you're, a student yourself or a parent. Like, juggling it all, this is for you.
It really is. It's for everyone.
And it's a good reminder, I think, that we all have access to this incredible tool.
Yeah.
Our breath.
It's always there.
Always there.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with this. Try it.
Yes.
Try the 3-6-5 method, See what happens.
Why not?
See what happens when you consciously bring those moments of breathing into your day. You might be surprised. You might be really surprised by what you discover.
You just might.
Because sometimes the simplest things, right? They can really be the most transformative.
The most powerful.
And, who knows? Maybe a little bit of breathing, that's all it takes.
Maybe so.
To unlock a little more calm.
A little more connection.
A little more connection.
Yes.
One breath at a time.
One breath at a time.